Hey guys, so if you've seen my most recent going back video, then you know that what I was planning on releasing next was a follow-up to the Clouded Judgment video essay. But once I sat down to start preparing for that, I was reminded that my reason for making that video to begin with was to kind of cover some odds and ends that didn't fit into other previous videos, such as what was the monster trying to accomplish when it attacked the group transporting the dynamite. So in a way, that video was already kind of a follow-up video in and of itself. And for that reason, there really wasn't a lot of feedback to that video as far as follow-up questions or, people seeking clarification on anything. So since that video doesn't actually need a follow-up at this time, I thought this would be a good opportunity to get around to something that I've been wanting to do for quite a while. A couple of years ago, I released a very long video. It was over an hour and 54 minutes. That was basically responding to feedback I had received to many of my previous going back entries. As time has gone by, I've kind of regretted doing that in one massive video because the way I've liked to arrange the playlists on this channel is that I put the going back entries directly after the videos that they're following up on. That way, anyone watching this channel's videos in one of those playlists will get the original video essay and then immediately get the video where I address the feedback to that video essay. The problem with that massive video is that because it addresses a wide range of things from a wide range of videos, it's all the way at the bottom of the playlist, and therefore, by the time someone, watches through that playlist, they may not really remember a lot of what I was talking about or what was being responded to. And so for a while, I've been wanting to go back to that video and break it up into smaller sections, which I can then put with the corresponding videos. And in certain cases, I would like to further update and clarify some of what I said, or as in the case of this video, there will be something that somebody added in the comments that I, once again, think is worth including. And I thought this would be a good opportunity to do that. But before getting into what I want to talk about today, I want to assure everyone that me re-releasing these smaller chunks will not further delay any new videos. The next completely new videos that you will be seeing will still be the remaining sections of the Smoke and Mirrors video essay. Basically, starting this week, you will either be seeing one of these videos or you will be seeing a new section of the Smoke and Mirrors essay. So for example, next week I probably won't be quite finished with part 5 of Smoke and Mirrors, and therefore you will probably see another one of these. But then the week after, if that section is done, you will see that and not one of these videos. And that will continue for the next several weeks until I am done with both the Smoke and Mirrors video essay and the smaller sections of this larger video. And the last thing that I really wanted to say about how I'm planning on releasing this is that I won't be re-releasing every section of that video. There are some sections, such as the one referred to in the thumbnail of that video, that aren't actually related to any previous video essays, and that I don't currently have anything to add to them. And so, for now at least, those sections will remain exclusively in that video, and they are, of course, time-stamped if, anybody ever wants to go and look for those specifically. But all right, without further ado, what I want to go back and readdress from this video is a comment from JewelTom10630. in which they ask 3 different questions, which I then answered in reverse order. I don't at this time have anything to add to how I responded to their second and third questions, but user Choekaas actually had some insight regarding their first question that kind of completely changed my answer to their first question. So that's what I want to come back and add at the end of this video. But for now, I'm going to edit in what I originally said, starting with me reading off JewelTom10630's comment. It would be very interesting to see a video about Dogen and the temple. Some questions that I have had in my mind about the temple. 1. Why did the temple have a Dharma logo on Ben's map? 2. Why didn't the others bring Colleen there to be healed when she was shot by Sun in Season 3? And 3. When Ben sent Alex, Carl, and Rousseau there in Season 4, he says the temple is not for them, referring to the 815ers. It's only for us. If this is the case, why was Rousseau allowed along? Hope you will give your theories on these things. I think I'm going to tackle these in reverse order, because I think that last one I could probably answer the easiest. The community of the others quite clearly regard the temple as a sacred site that they don't want any outsiders to access. That's why when Ben is sending Alex and Carl to the temple and they ask him, well, if it's so safe, why don't we all go there? He shoots this down because, as we know, the others are very particular about who they let into their ranks. And an entire group of outsiders, of people that they have decided are not worthy of being part of their community, they would not be okay with bringing them into the temple. And while I do think that that extends to Danielle, there's no way Ben would convince Alex to go there without her mother at this point. And so if Alex and Carl arrive at the temple and say that Ben sent them, and they have Rousseau with them, then realistically, the others at the temple probably won't be too happy about Danielle being there, but they're not going to refuse to let her in or kill her or anything like that. So while I don't think Rousseau is particularly welcome at the temple, I also don't think Ben could have sent Alex there without her. And I don't think it would be that big of a deal for this one outsider to come, given the circumstances. Now, the second question on there is something I actually never even thought about, regarding why Colleen wasn't brought to the temple in order to be healed the way Ben was as a child. But I think my answer to that would be that just realistically, given that this happens on the boat that they're commandeering, it probably would have taken a lot longer to get her to the temple. And it probably would have been much less likely she would survive that journey. Whereas because they are already on the boat, they can just sail back to Hydra and carry her the much shorter distance to the Hydra station, where they do have a doctor, who is Juliet, who can maybe save her life. So while the Temple Spring absolutely would stand a much better chance of saving Colleen than Juliet, I think it's more a question of which journey was she more likely to survive. Sure, the Temple Spring is much more likely to save her life, but that fact is worthless if she's not going to live long enough to make it there. And finally, the question of why on Ben's map that he gives to Alex and Carl, why does the temple have a Dharma logo next to it? I'm afraid I don't have a very interesting answer to this. It's not clear to me if this is a map that Ben has drawn up, and if so, it's also not clear when he would have done that. Without knowing those facts, there's a lot of different ways in which we could try and explain that. For example, in my headcanon, I've talked about before how I think from 1977 until a little bit before the Purge, Ben was kind of a double agent between Dharma and the others. Basically, both sides viewed him as their spy within the other community. And in my headcanon, I think for the majority of that period, Ben himself was not 100% on one side or the other. And so, just trying to come up with an answer to this more or less off the top of my head, I could see a scenario where he drew up a map and he wanted to mark on it where the temple was located, but maybe he didn't want to label it as the temple. And so he drew this symbol to kind of mark it for himself. And then when he's giving the map to Alex and Carl and Danielle, he could have more recently wrote temple above that so that they would know what that symbol was referring to. That's just an answer that I've just kind of made up here in the moment. And I really think there are probably countless ways in which you could kind of rationalize why the map labels the temple this way. And now I want to read this section of Choekaas's comment. My deduction for the temple map is that it was created by someone in Dharma, and they marked a logo on the temple as a potential station. Maybe the map is older than the truce. Obviously, Dharma would be killed if they tried to construct a station on the native sacred site. As for the logos were often made before the stations were built. They had a logo for the swan years before it was completed. So maybe the mapper had a temporary logo for the temple, but it never got any further than the drawing board. So this is a great example of something where somebody says something and it kind of clicks for me in a way that it almost feels like it should have before based on what I already had in my head. So in previous videos of mine, probably most especially in A Rock Solid Foundation, I have talked about how I believe at least one high-ranking member of the Dharma Initiative had been on the island before. So if that were true, as I believe it is, then at least some of the Dharma higher-ups would be aware of the temple spring and the miraculous ways that it can heal people. And if they were indeed aware of that spring, it makes sense that they would be absolutely dying to get in there and study that spring. Considering that Dharma wants nothing short of saving the world, it makes sense that they would view that temple spring as being the most promising part of the island to research and accomplish that goal. Now, the slight change that I would make to what Choekaas suggests is I actually think it makes more sense that that map would have been drawn after the truce. We know that the truce either expired or fell apart at some point, and we know that after that, hostilities between these two groups continued to escalate until the point of the purge. The fact that the Tempest was constructed with that very specific function of being able to release toxic gas throughout the island, I think it's safe to assume that Dharma built that station at least in part with that specific function in mind. I think tensions on the islands between Dharma and the hostiles were reaching such a point that Dharma did begin to plan to wipe out the natives. I think for the people that were aware of this plan, in their minds, they were able to justify this by saying that once they did that, they could then make legitimate progress towards what they came to the island to do in the first place. And again, once Choekaas brought this up, it occurred to me that the Temple Spring is really the perfect example of this. If Dharma had wiped out the natives and there was nothing stopping them from going to that temple, they would then have no problem accessing and studying that spring. And in theory, they could develop cures for virtually any illness or injury and greatly extend the lifespan of humans. So yeah, another great addition by Choekaas, and that is now my official headcanon answer to JulTom10630's original question. But alright, that's everything I have for today. I hope to see you guys next time.
Oh, you're still here. Hopefully that means you enjoyed this video. If so, please consider sticking around and being a constant for this channel by clicking right up here to subscribe. And don't forget to hit the bell icon if you would like to be notified when more videos like this one arrive. In the meantime, feel free to check out previous content from this channel by clicking here or here. Oh no. Please subscribe.